All right, so paper 2 is over and you're wondering what are the most likely questions for paper 4? Let's find out. Before we dive into the most likely questions for paper 4, I want to stress this. I don't know how much I can stress, okay? The importance of getting to know your graphing calculator. Now, I'm using the CAS version, but for the purposes of demonstration for this video, I'll be using the non-CAS version in the software, all right? So I know that many students probably are using the non-CAS version. I love the CAS version, and every time I've taught 0607 or the IB, I have always encouraged students to use the CAS model. It really helps in the learning of the subject. Perhaps in the time of the exam, if you put the calculator in the press to test mode, the CAS version, all the features are locked. But that being said, I'll be using the non-CAS version in the software, but this is the first thing to get to know. I've made entire playlists specified each video on each page. So, I'm going to link all those videos in the description box below. But in this video, I'll be making specific references to some of those videos and some of the features that you need to know for this paper to be able to crack this paper. So the first thing I would say, stressing it second time, is that you want to crack this paper, tell your calculator, you are my best friend. This is going to make the difference. Okay, this is going to make the difference. So let's get started. I think the last time in the paper 2 video, by the way, this is also going to be a fairly long video because as it is paper 4, you got a longer time, that is 45 minutes, and this is like 2 hours, 15 minutes. Not that this is going to take 2 hours, 15 minutes. I don't know whether I can speak for so long. But anyway, this is the calculator. This is the non-CAS version. The first thing to know, I think, is that, just go to the settings. This is on the home key. When you press the home key, just go to the home key, and when you hit settings, document settings neighbor, it's on status, sorry. Status, this is the version of the operating system. Okay, I made a video. This is the latest operating system. So check this first. If your calculator is not updated, I would suggest the first thing to do, please update it, because a lot of these features might just be stalled. Okay, and so I made a video specifically about how to upgrade your operating system on your handheld. I'm going to link those videos. Okay, all these videos I'm going to be making reference to, it will be in the description box below. Go ahead and first thing, just go and get it upgraded. Okay, so as of today, which is the 12th of February 2022, the latest operating system on your TI Texas Instruments TI Nspire CX2 should be 5.4.0. Clear? All right, let's get on with it. That's the first thing. The second thing to know is that this settings page or the options for the settings, these document settings and all those things. This is a very important thing to know, especially when you're doing your paper 6 also, okay? Because sometimes you have to change the answer mode, all right, the display mode, whether it's 3 decimal places or 4 decimal places or 3 significant figures. Ideally, I think, just keep it on 3SF or 3 significant figures. And to come to this menu, especially this document settings, no matter which page you're working on, all right? So let me just hit escape and maybe just add a calculator page. This battery icon, just click that. You'll come to that same menu. All right. So no matter which page you're on, just click on that. And when you go to the document settings here, you see this is fixed 2, it says here, right? So I'm going to make it float 3. Float refers to SF, significant figures, and fixed refers to decimal places. So even say, for instance, you're on your paper 6, and we'll make an entirely different video for paper 6, okay? But knowing where to come when, so especially when you're doing this using the calculator for the paper 4 and the paper 6, I would say, just knowing where to come to the document settings so that you can, make all the necessary changes. Calculation mode, approximate or auto. Especially when you keep it on auto, it will give you exact values as a fraction, as opposed to approximate values, which is a decimal, all right? So I'll leave it on approximate right now. And sometimes you need to have even the exact values, all right? So I'm just going to keep it under these settings, and I'm going to say, okay. And by the way, there are specific videos on these settings and getting to know how to go around the calculator. I made an entire playlist, as I said before. Please go ahead and take a look at it. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to highlight, operating system. Cool. Another thing I'll also say is that throughout the video, I'm going to be inserting a new problem for each question. And that's another video I've made, okay, problems and pages. And that's one huge tip I give my students that, even when you're writing the exam, before you've handed in your paper, it's easier to check all the work if each question is assigned a new problem. So your question number 1, problem number 1. So if you do not understand about problems and pages, there's a a beautiful video I've created. All my videos, I think they're beautiful. But let me know what you think about my videos. Okay, I'd love to hear in the comments. So each question, if you make it a new problem, and then you can add different pages for each problem. You know, the problem, this is the 1.1 that refers to problem number 1, page number 1. So within the same problem is like a question, you can add a new page. It could be a graph page. So that's 1.2. And you notice that that's a calculator page. This is a graph page under problem number 1. Now you want to insert a new question. I would say go to document, insert, new problem. And as you can see, it gives you that option and you can say add a calculator. That's 2.1. All right. So that's a new question or a new problem, but the same type of page. And when you've organized all your work like that, when you're checking your work before you are submitting, it helps to check. Okay, so it helps to check, meaning, okay, you can go to question number 1, which is problem number 1, see all the questions, see all the pages related to that, especially if it's statistics. And so we're going to start at statistics. And here's my iPad. Let me just switch to the iPad. I'm going to start at statistics because I heard that in paper 2 there wasn't any question on statistics. I don't know. I mean, maybe my predictions have gone wrong, but that's okay. I just want to highlight the main types of questions, different kinds of questions, all the way from 2018 to 2021. And someone told me that there wasn't any question on statistics in paper 2. What does that mean? It means that, boy, be prepared. Ye saal, ye abhi February, and even May session. Okay, if you're watching this video, even if you're not taking the exam in February, this paper 4, it'll be loaded with statistics. Ideally, in each paper 4, they have 2 questions for statistics and 2 questions for functions. So I would say just get to know your calculator, because I'll tell you why using the calculator even for each of these aspects really is helpful, and which is why I said the person who knows how to use it smartly. I mean, there are different ways to use it. I'll make a mention about it. But the thing that I wanted to point out is that in this October-November series, there have been 3 questions. 3 questions, and I'll show that in a minute. Okay, so here we go. So this is statistics, and that's my 2021. This is winter, all right? October, November, okay, 4-1. Can you see this is question number 4? Okay, that's a stats question. Question number 6, that's a stats question. And question number 3, well, it's not in the order. I arranged it so that it's in the order of what I'm going to be speaking about today. So 3 questions on statistics. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so there's been an emphasis on statistics in paper 4. So minimum 2 questions, max 3 questions, which means statistics aana chahiye, and you can't be wasting a lot of time, doing all the calculations, and they expect you to be able to use the calculator smartly. Now, what kind of questions? Sometimes they give you this kind of question where the data is ungrouped. All right. So this is an ungrouped frequency distribution. All right. What I mean by ungrouped is that data is just points like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so on and so forth. And they give you frequency. Frequency means what? The number of times that data is appearing in that data list. Okay. So the number 5 appears 16 times, the number 6 appears 18 times, the number 10 appears 4 times, so on and so forth. So sometimes you've got an ungrouped frequency distribution. Let's show you another example with that ungrouped. Okay, so this is grouped. Okay, this is a grouped. While we are at it, we can see that. Okay, this is grouped. The data is about mass. So mass between 10 and 140. Frequency again. All right, so that's again a grouped. This is grouped frequency distribution. They call it frequency distribution, like a frequency table, showing you how many potatoes, that's in the context of the question, how many potatoes in that group of 100 milligrams to 140 mg, there are 50 such potatoes, all right? So that's a grouped as opposed to ungrouped. Yeah, ungrouped, okay? Let's see any other question where they've given, yeah, there you go. This is ungrouped. Can you see that? Ungrouped. And sometimes they give you the word frequency, and sometimes they've given you this word number of students. They mean the same thing. Number of students means how many students scored. Wow, 0. My God, out of 180 students, God, I hope and pray that none of my students or none of the students who are watching will be in this category. But 0 marks number of students. So basically, I wanted to say was this is frequency. Okay, so sometimes they give you the word frequency, and sometimes there's no way you can get a 0. Don't. There's no way you will not get a 0. Okay, but watch this video. You're going to get an A star. So that's mark. That's the data. That's the data. And as I said, this is ungrouped. Okay, ungrouped, and this is the frequency. So there are 2 types of questions, as I just highlighted. Sometimes it's ungrouped and sometimes it's grouped. Why am I saying this? Because you're going to use a certain option on your calculator called 1 variable statistics or 2 variable statistics. Dono option. Okay. When to use which one? In both of these questions, you'll notice that the variable is just one. Look at this question. This is ungrouped, but that's the only variable. The only thing that changes, varies, is this, right? This piece of data, whatever that x represents, okay? That's the only thing that's going to be changing. X is sometimes 5, sometimes 6, sometimes 7, all right? So on and so forth. And you're required to find median, range, upper quartile, mean, so on and so forth. And as you can see, they're just 1 point. So in one shot in the calculator, you should get all these and enter it in, okay? Take a look at the other one with the grouped. Again, the data, this is the data. It talks about the mass of the potatoes, right? Okay, one variable. It's just that data that's changing. All right, so it's one variable. What was the other question? All right, here again, the marks. That's the only thing. How many students got 2, 3, 4? It's a very low marks, okay? Maybe the test was only out of 10, maybe, okay? That's why that's the maximum mark there. But that's the data. That's the data. One variable, okay? The only time you will use something called two variable statistics is in the case of, it's called bivariate data. So you're going to use that only in the case of the regression. Okay, so equation of regression line. Where is that question? Where is that question? So this is also grouped, as you can see. Okay, another example, and they're asking pie chart. Will come to that, but I just want to show you that grouped. Where is that thing? One sec. Hold on. Maybe it was in the first page itself. Okay. Yeah, they gave you that that same question, right? This is again an example of grouped frequency distribution, but it's about cumulative frequency. Here you go. You know, whenever you get a question on the correlation, the regression line, that is where you are using two variable statistics. Why? Because there are two variables. Look at this data. Can you see that? Number of days, that can also change. That can also vary. Height, that's another variable. So this is the key thing to remember. When your question is about correlation, that's when you use two variable statistics on the calculator. Otherwise, it's just one variable statistics. Okay? So that being said, let's just go and find out how we are going to enter these things for this first set. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the calculator. Excuse me. Here we go. And all of statistics, the data has to be entered in the list and spreadsheet page. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a list and spreadsheet page. And I'm going to, it's good to label the columns, all right? So I'm just going to label the column as it's given in the question. Okay, so this said frequency and X. You know, even if you label the column as frequency, the calculator doesn't understand that as frequency, meaning, you know, the way we understand frequency is the number of times that the data is understanding, the number of times that particular data is repeating. According to the TI, the word associated with frequency, that means the number of times this data is going to be represented, especially when it comes to certain diagrams like histogram and I think even pie chart, the word is summary list. Okay, we'll take a look at that. I thought I'll just throw in there. So I'm just going to enter this data right now. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, and the frequency associated with each of these is what, 16, 18, and 25. You know, if this anything is too fast, as I said, please go ahead and take a look at some of the videos that I've made about each of these specific topics, or you can always pause and take a look at this video. Or if you have a question, just throw it in the comments, okay? Now, the question was to find the median, range, upper quartile, mean. They're all in one shot, you can get it, okay? It's because it's one variable, we're going to run a one variable statistics, okay? So once you've entered the data correctly, just go ahead on menu, statistics, start calculations, and there you can see, can you see that one variable statistics and two variable statistics? Okay, so you need to know when to use which one. So the one variable statistics you'll use when you have one variable. Predominantly, almost all the questions are one variable unless and until it's a question on regression. मैं बताऊंगा, ठीक है? So one variable statistics we are going to run. It's only one list. Okay, the data is coming from one list. Although you've entered two columns, one list only. Okay, data kahan se hai? Not frequency. Data एक ही list में है, one list. Okay, and now it's telling you identify the data. So the X list. What goes on the X list is the, I think we've called it X, right? So no matter what you've called, okay, it might be in that case, you know, mass, you know, that one question was about mass. If you entered mass, then you'll be choosing mass, okay? So pick the name of the column that you've given. That's why I said it's good to name the column as per the question, which is why I said, you know, go problems and pages. And then when you're checking, it'll be good to check, all right? Frequency, that's the frequency, right? The frequency list comes from a list or a column that we call FREQ, all right? Then this is also important, I'd say, okay, the first result column. That means the calculator is asking, where should it display the results from? Now, if you don't specify the correct column, meaning what I mean by correct is that we've entered the data in the two columns, right? Column A, column B. So it's only the first column that is free without any entry is C. If you enter this incorrectly, it'll overwrite. फिर बाद में problem हो जाएगा, right? There, can you undo? Yeah, actually this calculator you can undo, okay? Control Z will work, but just be careful, why get into that. So because I have data entered only in the first two columns, I'm going to say the results can be displayed from C, all right? And I hit enter, and there in one go, you'll get all of this. Now, if you're not able to read it correctly, this is, if you click this, it'll show you here on this bar, it'll show you what that cell represents. It's pretty much like your Excel spreadsheet, okay? So that's X bar, that's a mean. And when you go down the statistics, you can see that it will give you the minimum value, all right, minimum of all the X's, X is the data, right? Q1 is the lower quartile, median is there, that's median, all right? So if you click that thing, you can see the median is 7. Q3 is given to you as 8, yeah, that's the upper quartile. Maximum value is given to you here. All the statistics is calculated just like that, okay? So minimum value, Q1, median, Q3, so on and so forth. So when you come back to the question that is on the question paper, the median, you can just copy it down, right? Just like that. एक mark वैसा ही मिल जाएगा. लेकिन in one step, just with one variable statistics, you get all those things there, right? So median is 7, range, upper quartile, Q3, you can write it as 8. I think that is 8 there, okay? And Q3 was 8, and range is not there, but I'll show you how you can figure that thing out. Anything else? The mean was calculated as, mean is that X bar, okay? In the calculator, it'll show you as X bar. I'll show it to you again. Here we go. So just scroll up. Okay, that's your mean. So 6.812. Unless otherwise specified, it should be 3SF, and what's displayed is 3SF, okay? So I'll just write it on as 3SF. So mean kya hai? 6.81. Range. Now to be able to use the statistics, one good cool thing about this calculator is that everything that you do here is stored in the memory of the calculator. So if I go to a calculator page associated with the same problem, okay, in a new problem, it's not going to happen. So that's why we said every question, make sure that it's a new problem. So, everything that's in the memory is associated with that particular question or that particular problem. So if I go here and if I click bar, all the, all those statistics that we've done is already stored here. So I can just pull out, let's say stat max, right? We want stat max. Max minus min is the range, right? So stat max, it's not max as MAXX, it's like max of X, all right, the variable. So stat max minus stat min, and that should give us the range, right? Similarly, you can even find out the interquartile range just like that. Okay, so if I go to a variable and stat Q3 kahan gaya? Q3, there you go, minus stat. The good thing about this is that, then it's taking all the values. It's not just rounding off, okay? Otherwise, rounding off errors. So that's the first one is your range. The second one is your interquartile range. Although this question didn't ask for interquartile range, I just thought I'll show to you. So the range, according to what we've done, is 5. So that's the easiest way to do this one way. Remember, one variable statistics, okay? Now, the same thing can be repeated even when you're doing something to do with ungrouped, okay? If the question asks something like that, I'll just come to an ungrouped with a similar kind of idea. And the only difference being, one sec, let me just look for these questions. Kahan gaya ye? Not this. This is, I meant grouped, okay? I mean, I made a mistake. I meant grouped. This is ungrouped, okay? A similar kind of question, meaning, asking for the mode, the range, the median, so on and so forth. Ye kya hai? This is grouped, right? Yeah, this is grouped. Although this question did not ask clearly here, but let's not rule out those chances, okay? So this is a question of grouped. This is grouped. मैं क्या बोले जा रहा हूँ आज, okay? This is grouped data, okay, and a frequency distribution, and they've asked for modal, okay? You know that the modal class is going to be corresponding to the one with the highest frequency. So the modal class clearly in this thing is 12. And it says right on the class which contains quartile, okay? This is a different question, but however, if it was a grouped frequency distribution and it was asking questions like estimate the mean, let me just check whether I have a question pulled out like that. I was only pulling out questions that were, different. Ye kya hai? They've asked for stem and leaf, median, so on and so forth. I've not put that thing here, but let's just go back to that particular question. Perhaps, it'll help us. Okay. So what you need to enter is the midpoint. That's all I wanted to emphasize. So let's go to that new problem that we entered, 2.1. And so I need to share my laptop. There we go. Add a list and spreadsheet page. Okay. And in this case, it is mass. So I'm just going to enter mass, MASS, and frequency, FREQ. And in this case, we are going to enter the midpoint. All right. So let me just do that. 70, that's 60 to 80. So 70, 80 to 100. So it should be 90, and arrow down. So 110, arrow down to 130. Okay. There you go. So then we enter the frequency as it is. So there will be 8, and arrow down to give you 3. And I'm just entering the data as it is in the question, as given in the question. So make sure that you double check even how you entered the values. All right. So double check those kind of things. Again, a good reason why it helps to create problems in pages. So even when you're checking your work, as I said in one video earlier, don't just check what you've written, but check it against the question paper. So, when you final check you're doing that, make sure that you enter the correct values. And if you've ever created this kind of problems pages kind of an idea, you can go back and check the data, not just the answers, even how you've entered. Okay. So after you've done all that, it's just about, running that one variable statistics. It's still one variable and it's still one list. All right. So let's do that quickly. Menu, statistics, start calculations, one variable statistics. It's a one list again, this time X list. Remember, we have called it by name. All right. So the list that was labeled mass frequency comes from a list that was called FREQ. First result, okay, again, you can say, oops, I can say C, and there again, you got that. And then in a question, I think they asked for the class which contains the lower quartile, if you arrow down, it'll be the Q3 that we're looking for, right? Q1. Q1 is the lower quartile, I'm sorry. And as you can read, the Q1 is just 70, all right? Q1 is 70, and you can come back to your question and say, where is 70, okay? Which class contains 70? And you can look at it clearly and say 70 belongs to this class, right? So write on the class, that's the class, so between 60 m less than or equal to 80. That's the thing. All right. So all I'm trying to show is that, this is like a one-shot thing. Okay. Enter the data. If it's single variable, one variable, do your one variable statistics and then answer all the questions accordingly. Is that all right? This is another question that has come twice at least in the group. Okay. But there have been several times I've come across this question. Look at this. Okay. Now there's nowhere about Maria earlier on, but then Maria says that the range of masses is 80. Explain why she's incorrect. Okay, the range is 80. And if you just look at it clearly, well, 140, normally the range is like max minus min, right? 140 minus 60, you'll work out that's 80, but why is she incorrect? I'll show you another place where you have a similar kind of thing. Okay, so the same question, this is the first thing that we looked at, right? This was ungrouped frequency distribution. Yes, I got this right, ungrouped, okay? Whereas this one, we saw later on, where was that question? Grouped frequency distribution. I need to make sure that I'm getting my words right. Grouped. Okay. In both the questions, you got a very similar kind of question. Here it says that someone named Maria says that the mass, okay, the range of the masses is 80. And here in this particular question with the ungrouped frequency distribution, you got a statement here which says when X represents the height of a seedling, can you guys see this question clearly? When X represents the height of a seedling, correct to the nearest centimeter, explain why you cannot work out the range of the heights. I mean, I just showed you on the calculator, right? I just showed it to you that the range is max minus min. You remember? Come back to that. That is the first question. And can we see? Oh, by the way, to maneuver between the different pages, okay, you can just hit control and the left and the right arrow key. Okay, so if I want to go to the left, control left again. This is on the handle. Because I'm on the laptop, it's easy to just use the trackpad, right? As you can see, I just did the max minus min to get the range, and the range as 5. And I think one of the question was range. Okay, come back to that iPad again. Can you see that? Part 2, the range. But then part B says, when X represents the height of a seedling, correct to nearest centimeter, explain why you cannot work out the range of the heights. Okay, now, why is it so? Well, because here the data is rounded off. Okay, here the data is rounded off, and we don't know the minimum value that was rounded off to 5. Okay, we don't know. We just know that, it was rounded off. Okay, it doesn't mean that was included. The minimum value that is rounded up to 5, correct to the nearest centimeter, we don't know whether that literally was there. We just know that all numbers that were rounded off to the nearest centimeter that came up to 5, there were 16 such numbers. So we don't know the exact value. So we can write something like this, okay? Exact minimum value and exact maximum value are not known. Okay, you can write down because you don't know the exact minimum value, and because the range talks about the maximum. Same thing here, right? The upper bound is not known. Like we only know that 4 values that were rounded off to the nearest centimeter, are represented as 10. Correct? So we don't know the exact value, and therefore you can't work out the range of the heights. Likewise, even that Maria question. Where's Maria? Okay, Maria says that the range of masses is 80 kg. Okay, we don't have anything about rounding off here. However, the data is grouped. We don't know the minimum value. We don't even know whether there was a value called 60. यहाँ पे ऐसा लिखा है कि 60 to 80 there were 8 such sheep, right? But we don't know whether 60 was included, right? There's no guarantee. Likewise, 140, that range of values, 120 to 140, there were like 7 such sheep present, okay, in the data, but we don't know whether 140 was there or not, right? So there is no guarantee, with no certainty. And by the way, this is just one point, so you don't have to write an essay. You can just say that there is no certainty. There is no certainty. Or you can't be certain that the minimum value, the exact minimum value is 60 and the exact maximum value is 140. Is that clear? I hope it makes sense. But you don't need to expound on it more. Okay, this is good enough. Okay, there is no certainty, and that's good enough. It's one point. As I said, you don't have to write too much into that. Okay, clear? So I have explained about grouped frequency distribution, something like this, and ungrouped frequency distribution, something like this, both having a similar kind of question, but the main thing was how to use the calculator. In both cases, we're using one variable statistics, and remember, in the grouped case, we were using the midpoint. All right. Now, there's one part that's left in that question. I'll come to that later when I talk about pie charts. Okay. Where was that? There's a pie chart wala question there. Okay. And it says an accurate pie chart. Can you see this? Accurate. Now, many of you know that you just divide the frequency, but give me a sec. I'll come to that pie chart in a bit. Okay. While we are on the same question about one variable and two variable, I just wanted to do the two variable one. And remember what I said. I said you are going to run a two variable statistics only when you have a question something like this: regression, finding the regression equation, so on and so forth. And this is going to be there. Okay. Now, whether it's going to be an ungrouped or a grouped, ek to question aane wala kal, that's going to be one short question, because such questions do come in your exam. But one question with all certainty, I think I used pink color in the last video. With all certainty, I'm going to lay my bet on regression equation. So dhyan dena. This is where you're going to use the two variable statistics, and I'm going to enter the data as it is. If you do not have your calculator or your paper and pen, make sure that you pause this video, just work it along with me, or take some other question and just work it along with these kind of instructions. Two variable statistics. Ready? So here we go. We are going to switch to the calculator, and I think two questions were already inserted. This was some other question. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a new problem. Okay, doc insert new problem. And I'm going to insert a list and spreadsheet page directly. Okay. And I'm going to label the columns as it is. So this is number of days. So I just, oops, not here, right up here. Okay. This is where you enter days. And the next one, I'm going to call it height, H-E-I-G-H-T. All right. And let's enter the data correctly. So that's 20, 20, 42, 76, 90, 24. Can anything be more boring than entering data? 56. All right. And then the height is 34. Yeah, this might be boring, but it is super important, because the calculator only calculate based on what you've entered. Na? Why should you lose a point? Otherwise, calculations aise aayega na, to dhyan dena. Even though it is boring, even for me, I agree it is boring entering data, especially when you got such a lot of data to enter. But just be careful on that. Okay, we have entered all the data. Double check. And I think 34, 66, 18, 76. Always double check. It's a good habit. All right. After you've done that, now this is where I'm going to show you that we're going to use two variable statistics. Okay. Now, in fact, I would Okay. You can run the, let me just show you, okay? The two variable statistics, you can run that thing here, but with the context of the question, because it's asking for the regression, I can bypass, but this is where you would probably use two variable statistics. I'll show you quickly how to use that, okay? So if the question was to find like the mean, median, mode, and so on and so forth for each of the data, because there are two variables, you will run a two variable statistics. Let's do that anyway, okay? We need to just find the regression equation. You know, the question is not talking about the mean, median, mode of those, each of those variable, but suppose they ask you, right? Two variables, especially in the case of the correlation, and they're asking the mean. Have they asked anything about the mean? Nahi pucha na. Sometimes if they ask, okay, that's in that context, you have to use the two variable statistics. Let me just show it to you, okay? So two variable statistics. Here again, it'll give you a similar kind of a menu, right? So the X list, we don't know what's X or Y, but the question, thankfully, they've given us something, all right? Number of days is going to be a X list. The height is going to be the Y list. Frequency, that can be one, and if there's no frequency distribution, something like that, just leave it as one. First list, again, that can be C, because we've entered A and B. You can enter C here, and you can say, okay, now this X bar refers to the mean of the days, okay? And you can get the same kind of statistics we ran there, okay? And at the same time, in one go, you've even found out, if you just scroll down, you'll see even Y bar. Can you see that? So that's the mean of the second list, that was height. So the two variables, suppose there's a question that's asked, I would say just run the two variable statistics. However, I hope this one is clear, right? However, in this question, you don't need this kind of data, because they've not asked anything like that, right? They just said, they've asked complete the scatter plot. So, they've given the first 5 points, and you got to basically plot the other ones. You can do that easily because the data is given to you. And they said, what type of correlation? Now, when you just look at the correlation, let's just do that, okay? We'll work the regression out. So I go to this data, okay? And what I'm going to do is that, because it's a regression question, I just want to make sure which column is free. Column E is free. Remember that, okay? Column E is the first column that's free. Now, when it's a question purely on regression, like this question, and it's not asking mean or any of those statistics, then you can directly run the regression equation. So menu, statistics, stat calculations, choose this number 3, which says linear regression mx plus b. Okay. This particular question, as I said, at least 3 times now, you didn't need to run two variable statistics, but still that's the only case you run bivariate data. Okay. This kind of question, which the question is asking about correlation. It's a question about whether those two variables are related, correlation, right? So that's where you use two variable. All right, we are looking for the regression equation mx plus b. Run the regression equation in the listen spreadsheet. I'm going to say that again. Run this regression equation, or this regression analysis, in the listen spreadsheet page, not in the data statistics page. You can do it there also, but I'll tell you the advantage. I'm going to give you the advantage quickly, all right? So here we go. So we are going to run the linear regression here, mx plus b. Again, similar kind of pop-up menu. Make sure you use the correct column name that corresponds to the X and the Y. And here it was days for X list, and the Y list comes from height. Can you see this option? Save regression equation to. You're not going to get this option if you run this thing on the data statistics. Okay. So, and there's a good reason why this option is there. Okay. Save the equation. So whatever equation you're going to get, it saves it directly. Like I said, that it goes into the memory of the calculator. It saves the regression equation into F1. If you already have another equation in that problem, remember problems in pages, and this might have been one of those pages there. Say, for instance, you saved some function, or something as an F1, then this should be F2. All right, it can't be the same F1. So if you've saved a function in that same problem, so that there's no clash, accordingly make this F2. Right now, the only page I have on this particular problem number 3 is the list and spreadsheet page. So it makes sense that this is just F1. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. Frequency list can be 1, but this is important to save the regression equation. Okay, and then we can say the first column should be E. All right, I already explained why. Hit OK, and there you got it. Okay, so the regression equation of the form mx plus b, the m, go to that cell and you can check out what that value is. B, you can see what the value is. Depending upon R, the value of R, you can tell what kind of correlation this is going to be. All right, so we've entered the data and we see it's 0.85. That's a good, strong, positive. All right, so I'm just going to write what type? I'm going to write it strong, positive. Even without, we didn't even need, because you would have plotted the points here, but even without doing that data statistics, you can just look at the value of R and say it's going to be a strong positive correlation. Find the regression equation. Find the equation of regression line for h in terms of d. This is important. Don't write it as y equals mx, although that it says something like mx plus b. Don't write y and x. Find out from the question. Read the question in the context. Okay, the h was the the dependent variable, and the number of days, the d, was the independent variable. So it is h is equal to m times d plus whatever the y-intercept is. Okay, so you need to write it in the context. Don't leave it as you might lose 1 point. Okay, kitna point ka ye? 2 points. Okay, so you can read from the calculator that the slope or m is going to be 0.8 what is that, 587 times d plus 37.4. Everything done just by looking at that list and spreadsheet. We have not even added the data statistics page. Then it says, use your regression line to estimate the height of the plant. Okay, height of the plant was y value. All right. Sometimes ulta bhi puchte hain log, okay, that way. So estimate the height of the plant that was planted 28 days ago. Can you guys, I'm not even sharing the question. Can you see this? Okay, use your regression line, that equation that you got, to estimate the height of the plant. H is equal to, all right. You're just substituting d is equal to 28, right? Because you want to find, okay, you want to find. So you could do the longer way. It's not wrong. The longer way of going to the calculator, say h is equal to 0.587 times 28 plus 37. Wo karo. If you want to do that, it's not, but I'm here to just show you some, tricks how to do that. So that is where that saving the regression is going to come. Okay, so I'm going to switch to the calculator. Add a calculator page. Okay, this is the same problem, 3.2. Now, because you saved it under F1, when I type in F1, can you see it's becoming bold? So it's saved there. I just say F1 of 28 and hit enter. I get the value 53.8, just like that. I don't have to do that, 0.587 times. Even though you're using the calculator, use it smartly is what I'm saying. Okay, so this is going to be 53.8. And write down the units. Okay, they've given the units here. That's fine. All right, let's come to the next question. Okay, it says a plant was planted 140 days ago. So every question on regression, this will be asked. I think it was 18. 2018 was a very unique year. I think, the kind of questions that they asked was strange. Okay, it was longer and there were 3-4 questions. And I think in that paper, one of those papers, there was this thing about the mean of each of those variables, and that is why I insisted on showing you that the 2 variable statistics really helps. In one go, you can get the mean, the median, or whatever they're asking for the interquartile range. Okay, so there were longer questions in 2018 which comprised of finding the mean. So when you have a 2 variable statistics, you only use that 2 variable statistics in the case of correlation, because that's where you're dealing with 2 variables. Now this video has got so long, I suddenly just saw the time. Okay, bear with me. All right. Or just skip to the chapter that you're interested in. Let's go to the question. It says, a plant was planted 140 days ago. Explain why you should not use the equation of regression line to estimate. Abhi to humne use kiya hai. We just use the regression line to estimate the height of a plant that was planted 28 days ago. So what is it about this 140 days ago? The way to answer this question is when you look at the data, regression is only for the data within that period. Okay, so now when you look at the minimum value of days, okay, minimum number, the smallest value is d of d is 20, and the highest value of d is 98. So any data, anything that is between 20 and 98, you can use it to estimate. You can use. That's why when you had something like 28 days, 28 is in between 20 and 98, right? Good to use. But 140, that's outside of the domain, if you were to call that, all right, or the range of values for D. Outside of that, we use another word called extrapolation, but you don't need those kind of fancy words for igcse 0607. So you can clearly say why you should not use. You can say that because 148 or 140 is out of the, or outside or beyond, out of the range of values of number of days as given in the table. Okay, so try to answer within the context of the question, number of days. Okay, so it's out of range, that's okay. Within the range means it talks about like 28 is within that range. Hope this is clear. Okay, so what all did we do in statistics so far? My God, this is going to be a really long video, man. So this was, we saw the ungrouped, then we saw grouped, and they will ask a question on cumulative frequency. I'm going to lay my bet in this one also. So already I've laid my bet on regression, pakka, okay? Cumulative frequency curve. And although, I mean, already, like I said, somebody already told me that, they have not asked questions on statistics, so ye to aane wala. Cumulative frequency curve, they're going to ask. But here's a tip. Remember, when you're finding the interquartile range or a certain mark, make sure that you're drawing the line. They have not mentioned anywhere, but that all counts to the working, okay? So just draw the line that connects the curve to, whether it's a Q3 value or the Q2 value. And this is another very good subpart to the cumulative frequency curve. They'll say apples with mass below 80 grams are used to make drinks. Find the percentage of 300 apples that are used to make the drinks. Again, so you go to 80, okay, from 80, wherever the curve is, just assume that was a curve, okay? And let's just draw a straight line. Make sure you carry a nice ruler. I just made this thing up, okay? This might not be the right answer, but make sure you draw this line. This is what I'm saying, okay? Make sure you draw the line to indicate, okay? That's part of working. This is not the right thing, okay? But 80 pe line draw karna, and where it meets the curve, get the reading from the vertical axis and read the question, okay? It says apples with mass below 80. So you're looking at, yahan pe. Sometimes they ask, something above. So you got to subtract from the total value. Here it was 300 was the total value. So answer that question accordingly. But the reason I put this particular question is because they've asked to find the percentage. Can you see that? Percentage. So it's not just the value. You're going to divide it by 300 and then multiply it by 100 to find the percentage. Okay? Find the percentage. So read the question clearly. I think that's about it for statistics, except for that question on pie chart. Let me just quickly run through this, okay? This is another question on cumulative. Why did I put this thing here? Oh, can you see this? They've asked median interquartile range. Okay, again, find the number of potatoes with mass greater than. That's where if it's greater than, then you've got to subtract it from the maximum value. All right, to get that. We looked at this question already. I'm just going to look through this. Stats, yes, is going to be at least two to three questions. What is this? A different group of students of 140. Okay, this is also a good question. We did this question, I think. Did we? No, I just showed this question to you as an example, another example of ungrouped frequency distribution. I think I'm getting better with the vocabulary right now. Okay, so go through one variable statistics, okay, and number of students referring to frequency. But this is an additional question, a different kind of question. I'm just highlighting different questions here. A different group of 140 students take the same examination. Okay, so this is, I think, about an examination. 180 students took that examination. Strange examination, 10 point ka ye. And the marks of the two groups, that means this was 180, this is one group, this is another group 140. Okay, the marks of the two groups are combined and the mean mark of the 320 together is 6.5. Can you see that? So the mean of the two groups is 6.5. They asked the mean of the 140. So what we do is that you already calculated the mean using one variable statistics for this question, right? So let's just call this X bar, okay, green, so that it's known, okay, this is known. How you set it up is this X bar is for a group of 180 students. So it's literally 180 times that X bar, which you have already calculated, plus 140 for this new group, times the new mean, which you have to calculate. This is red, so that means you need to calculate for this. This whole thing divided by 320, that's a new group. This is equal to 6.5. So this is the expression that you're going to use to calculate Y bar. Okay, the new mean of that 140 students. So you basically multiply 320 by 6.5, subtract it from 180 times that X bar, which you already have here, and then divide by 140. That will give you the mean mark. So just be careful how you lay down this formula. It's not like a typical way of finding the average of the two means. So don't get tripped by the fact that it is divided by 2. It's not divided by 2. It's a weighted arithmetic mean, which means X bar multiplied by 180 plus 140 times the Y bar divided by 320. The total number is going to be equal to 6.5. Clear? What shall we jump to the functions part? Let me just go through this quickly. Hey, pie chart I've not shown. Bear with me. There have been questions. There has been this. When was this? This is 18. As I said, 18 was a year. There has been a question on stem and leaf. And when you're doing the stem and leaf, don't forget the key, all right? You need to write the key, median and quartile from there. Cumulative, we already spoke about that. I want to show the pie chart quickly. Ye kya hai? Rani, okay. Rani had some seats. When is this? I've not entered the date, but yeah. Oh, this was the long question. Can you see this question? Okay, they started with a grouped frequency distribution. I think this is also 2018. Okay, calculate the estimate of the mean. Okay, we've already seen a question like that. Cumulative frequency curve उन्होंने पूछा है. Okay, using the cumulative frequency curve, you have to answer the questions. Then you have to draw the histogram. Yeah, maybe that's the reason I've given this thing. Now, I made a video on drawing the histogram. I'll just link that, okay, because otherwise we're going to take forever. I'm going to link that. So they've also asked histogram, but I have a feeling this was the only time they've asked for histogram or through 2018. And probably the reason I put this question here is just to show that, histogram has been asked. But that question about that pi, where's that? There was another question in some other year, which was about, find the angle, for a particular sector. I'm just looking for that question. Give me a sec. कहाँ गया वो? Give me a sec. Ready? ये वाला है क्या? All right, here we go. This was the question. Draw an accurate pie chart to show this information. And thankfully, we have this question right there. Okay, so I think it's a good thing I'm doing this thing right now because it can also show you that we have solved this question. We have entered the value somewhere. You can directly go to that. It wasn't problem number 2, right? This was the question. Okay, we've entered it here and it says, draw an accurate pie chart to show this information. Great. Okay, we're going to do this thing. I'm going to show you how you can use the TI Nspire to draw a pie chart. Again, I have done a video on this thing, but I'll show it in this context because ये तो exam में आया ही है, right? So what we're going to do is that first let's go and enter that data statistics page. Now, the data statistics page is for graphs related to statistics. This graph page is for graphs related to functions. Let's be clear on that. All right. So data statistics page for graphs related to statistics. Here also you could have done the regression. Okay. But usme advantage in that other case is that, like I said, you would get that equation saved. That's a smarter way to do it. All right. So I'm going to, oh, by the way, whenever the data is blue in color, it's numeric data. Okay. Because all the data here is mass, right? And mass is numeric data. However, the theory of pie chart, and maybe you'd study that when you're in IB, the theory of pie charts is only reserved for non-numeric data, what we call categorical data, all right? The calculator will draw you a pie chart, but the calculator is very strict on those things. Ki bhai, ye to categorical ke liye. But you can still, there's a workaround, the calculator is sensitive to us. So what we need to do first thing is that we're going to just identify X variable as mass, and then we're going to convert this numeric data into categorical data or non-numeric, and suddenly it'll become colorful. Watch. So we go to menu, and is it plot properties? I guess so. Yeah, it's a force categorical on X. Make it categorically. Okay, so we just come there and we say categorical, and suddenly it's become colorful. Data is still there, but now the calculator is going to interpret these values coming from this particular column as categorical. All right. Now, as I said before, the calculator is not going to recognize frequency, even though we called it frequency. Okay, so look at that. We call it FREQ, right? So the calculator is going to recognize it as summary list. So what we have to do is that we go to menu and we go to say add summary list. Okay, add Y summary list. Okay, so when you say add Y summary list, okay, maybe it's not clicking properly. Maybe it's my trackpad. There's been some issues. The summary list or the frequency comes from a column called FREQ. So make sure you add summary list. Okay. By default, the first thing that will show up is a bar chart. This is not a histogram, okay? Ek to colorful hai. And bar chart again is reserved for categorical data, okay? And then it's not connected. Yes, it is reserved traditionally for, but people still make use, who's to stop anyone? But historically, or when you go into higher order statistics, you'll say that pie chart and bar charts are only for categorical data. And now we want a pie chart, right? So we can just go and change that. So we'll go to plot type and say pie chart. Until you do that force categorical, you'll not even see this option. It'll be grayed out. Can you see the others are grayed out? Okay, this will be grayed out. So when I just click that, you got your pie chart. Right click on it, and right click on your handheld is control menu. Press control menu to get the right click options. So you say show all the labels, you got your percentages. That's vital information. That's vital information, because then you can say 23.3% of 360 because you're looking for the angles, right? In this particular question. Yeah. 23.3% for each of them, you can just find the angles. Yes, you could have done. Could we have done it separately? Like, frequency 8 divided by 30, that would still give us the percentage. And could you have done that? Great. It took a little while because, I was explaining it. But if you already entered the data to find the other aspects of the question, then it's just about using that thing, right? And go ahead and it'll give you the percentage. And then you just have to, use your calculator 23.3% of whatever that 360 degrees, because that's the circle, and you can find out all the different sector angles. Use your protractor, measure correctly. अच्छा ये तो ठीक है, लेकिन at the end of the day, this is what is going to get you those 4 points or whatever that is. Clear? That being said, let's just jump to functions. Okay, we're going to jump to functions, and this is going to be another long section. Remember one thing, functions also you're going to get 2 questions, and there have been years before where you've had more than 2 questions, but in this particular video, I'm going to show you just some types of questions. Typically, they're going to ask 2 kinds of questions. One is where the function is given and you're asked to graph, okay, sketch the graph. And the other kind of question is where you're given these functions. Sometimes they're given 2 and sometimes they're given 3. Let's try this question first, and I'll tell you why, okay? If they're given 2 or 3, I would say first just enter it, okay? Assign the values, all right? So I'm just going to jump to the calculator. Here we go. And let's enter a new problem. So doc, insert, and new problem, and I'm going to say add a calculator page this time, 4.1. Can you see that? New question, new problem, all right? Define the function, f of x, okay? Assign key is control and the key to the right hand side of 9, and we just say 3x minus 2, all right? Done. And then g of x, use the assign key, all right? And we can just say x minus 3 to the power of 2, okay? So if there were 3 different functions, I'd say first thing, just enter all of them. Okay, so I'll just show you the question again quickly. All right, they gave us 2 questions, 2 functions in this question, and they just said, find the value of fg of 1, solve this, and so on and so forth. Let's just do each of them quickly. All right, so once you're on the calculator, now you can just say fg of 1, f of g of 1, and hit enter, and it'll give you the value. 2 points, just like that. Okay, solve g of x. I'll just enter that thing there. This is 10. Okay, and solve g of x is equal to 25, all right? So we can just go and say numerical solve, okay, algebra, numerical solve, it says g of x is equal to 25. So I'm just going to say g of x is equal to 25, and the syntax is comma x, you hit that, and you get -2, just like that. Now, in this particular question, they asked 2. I'm glad we used this question. I think, come back to this, they asked for 2 values. Can you see that? 2 values, and when you use that nsolve, it's just going to give you 1 value, all right? Now, you got to be a little smarter, and I think that this is one reason why it helps to, use the Nspire, okay? I'll just jump to that calculator again. It just showed you 1 value, right? Can you see that? Just 1 value, okay? And in the paper, they have clearly said 2 values, okay? So one thing is you could write g of x as x minus 3, the whole square is equal to 25, algebraically. Show this thing. Don't just write the answer, okay? This is paper 4. You got to show some working. And after that, you can say x minus 3 should be equal to plus or minus the square root of 25, which is 5, all right? And then obviously, you know that there's going to be 2 values. But when the calculator gives you something like that and you're worried, you can use the graph option. Or here's another trick to use. You can bring that expression down, and to do that, you can hit the top arrow key once, top arrow key second time, bring the expression down. Same thing is brought down. And now you can manipulate it. What I mean by manipulate is something like this. Okay, so you can hit control equal to this key, and you can say, is there a value that's greater than -2? Okay, so you're just solving. You can even do less than, and the calculator will say 8. That means those are the 2 values, right? If there was none, it will probably give some error message. In that case, you would have just said less than. So this is called manipulating, or you can edit the same expression again, hit top arrow key and bring it down. And when you come back to your answers, you can see that the second value should be 8. Clear? So be careful on that part. The next one is to find the inverse, and f inverse of f. Okay, इसमें ज़्यादा time मत waste करना. This is just x. Okay, that's just a theory of inverses. The composite of inverses. Okay, so f of f inverse of x, or whether it's f inverse of f, it'll just be what that domain value is. All right. So on the other hand, if it was something like a g inverse of g of, let's say, 3x, and I deliberately use the word domain, तो ये आंसर इसका होगा 3x. ठीक है? So this is just a theory of inverses with the composites. Another kind of question that has come, basically, as I'm saying that, there's only 2 different kinds of questions that will come into functions. One is when they've given you this kind of a question where you're supposed to sketch the graph and then, find equation of the asymptote, the local minima. We'll solve a question on that and I'll tell you what all to go. So definite bet. I mean, you would also bet on this kind of a question, right? But what kind of questions to expect? So this is one definite question. We'll solve that in a minute. The other one is this. My bet for tomorrow, तीन function वाला आएगा. There'll be F, G, and H. Something else in H. Okay, and such questions have come. So these questions are going to be there. 2 questions for sure. Whether there's going to be a third question, I don't know. But look at this question. This is part B of some other question. Same year actually, because I've organized it that way. Okay, so this was again October, November 21 for one paper. They've asked a trigonometric question where they asked you questions about the amplitude. Okay, a function, trigonometric function. They've asked you this kind of thing has been making its way several times. Okay, the graph is stretched with the x-axis invariant, scale factor of 3 to give the graph of G, find G. The graph is translated. So the reason I put this thing is because it's not just this question of a function defined. So in this case, they've given you a trigonometric function and amplitude and period. This looks like a paper 2 kind of a question. What really is the important thing is these kind of subparts to it where they're asking about the transformation of functions. And that's made its way in several questions. One is this. What's the other question? Okay, so if I just jump to another paper, this is another trigonometry. Can you see this? Actually, ये करना चाहिए था हमको, because this is like that first type of question where they asked you to graph minimum, maximum, amplitude, period again coming here. Okay, and they've asked the range. Okay, there are, I think, at least 2 different places I've seen about the range. They've asked, okay, on the same sketch. Maybe you should do this question instead of that one. Okay, because this also has the amplitude period, right? वो भी है. Then this is an exponential function question. Okay, this is also a function and exponential, a question on exponential functions. You got to write down the function. They've not defined the function. Again, I'm just showing you the types of questions and on which I'm willing to lay my bet on. All right, here you go. Can you see this? Transformation. A function given, graph of f of x is mapped to the graph of g of x by the translation. Again, mapped by a stretch factor of. So they have given functions with transformations, and it's made its way several times in the last couple of years. Let's take a look at another question. Again, this looks like a function with that typical maxima minima. And can you see this? Okay, they've not asked literally for the transformation, but they've it's like f of x, and then of course that's got a translation. Okay, that's f of x plus 1 is a translation, and they've said solve the inequality. Okay, one is inequality, one is the equation. Or kya hai? Again, can you see them over and over again? You have the same kind of question coming. Okay, same 2 kinds of questions. One is the function with a grid. In fact, in one particular year, there are 2 such grids. Okay, so my bet is definitely a question like that. Okay, a question like this, and we're going to solve this in a minute. Okay, and a question like this, but I said 3 function wala question aayega. Okay, and then composites and finding the inverse and so on and so forth. Okay, let's take a look at this amplitude. Right, so the amplitude clearly is 3. Amplitude clearly is 3, and period is from the term inside. Okay, whatever that is, 2x, 3x, you just divide 360 by whatever that number is 2. Okay, in this case, the period should be 180. Okay, it's basically when you have a trigonometric, excuse me, when you have a trigonometric function, it's a sine bx plus c. All right, for your igcse, you just have these 3, igcse 0607, you just have these 3 different parameters to work with: the amplitude, the dilation, and the vertical shift. Okay, you're not talking about the horizontal shift, although in IB you'll study all that. Okay, and then you'll have A, B, C, D for that. So it's basically the period is found out by that B, that factor out there. So it's basically 360 divided by that B. In this case, the B was 2. All right, and that's how you find out the period. All right. Should we do the variation here? Let's do the other question, because that was, it will combine the graph wala feature, the idea of trigonometry. Maybe that's a good way to solve that question. Okay, so I'm just going to jump to that question. Where is that? Where is that? Was this one? Was it this one? Yeah, it looks like that one. Okay, so f of x is sine x, and g of x is sine x the whole square. All right, now just for the sake of notation, if you ever see sine square x, okay, that's the same thing as sine x the whole square. Okay, so likewise, if there was sine to the power of 3 x sine cube x, it just means it's sine x cube. All right, so अच्छा हो गया इसमें ऐसा दिया है हम लोगों ने. Okay, so you have these 2 functions, and you need to sketch the graph of f of x. I would say, first read the whole question. Okay, as I always say, read the whole question, and you'll notice that both the graphs actually need to be sketched. On the diagram, sketch y is equal to f of x. On the same diagram, can you see that? So That's how smartly you should use your calculator. Pehla dekh lo, rather than one at a time. Dekh lo ki kya karna hai. And this is how you do. This is the second kind of question where the graph has to be sketched. The first one, as I said, you just defined, right? So let's jump to the calculator now. Okay, let's insert a new problem. We already talked about the advantages of, inserting new problem. The first thing you do when you see this kind of a graph page, I would say just hit escape, come out of that entry, and just arrange your window settings. That's the first thing to do. Arrange your window settings according to what is given in the question. In the question, we want, the minimum value of y is this, -1. The maximum value of y is this. The minimum value of x is 0, and that's 360. Just arrange it as close as possible. And, that's the first thing I would say, do that. And to get to that part, you have to go to menu, window zoom, and window settings. Okay, let's show that again. Menu, not dock, menu, window zoom, and window settings. And then I'll just arrange this quickly. Xmin is the Xmin. All right, so that should be 0. Hit tab to go to the next field. 360 is what we're looking for. X scale, that's the division. And when you look at it, and you can even be smart to say that, look at the question. It says the scale thing is 90, 90 units. You can even make that thing, all right, on your calculator, just to make it, so come to something which says that's not auto, and then hit 90. Then let's say y min was -1, y max was 1. Cool. Scale, okay, let's just be a little smart and say, okay, you want it 0.5 maybe. Okay. Hit enter, and you got it. And make sure your calculator is set to degrees. Okay. In the igcse 0607, it should be degrees. So just, that's a toggle thing, degrees and radians. So make sure that's set to degrees, not radians, as I had left it at radians, but keep this way. And if you want to see the grid, I like to see the grid actually, and you can go to menu and the settings of this particular page. You can, see that grid says no grid. You can just say lined grid, and it'll give you the nice grid, like the graph paper type of a feel. Okay, let's enter. Now when you hit tab, it'll give you the function entry line. Just hit sine. So go to the trigonometry sine of x. The graph of sine of x is there. And when you're there, you know that you've read the question, right? You've read the question. So दूसरा function को भी enter कर दो. So the second one is hit tab, sine x square. So put the bracket and sine x and come out of it. And make sure that you entered sine x the whole square. And there you can see the red graph is sine x the whole square, and the blue graph is sine x. Okay, copied on the graph. I hope that you've read the question. Okay, so copied on the graph as it is. I'm not going to do that part. It says the second part of the question says write down the local minimum point, coordinates of the local minimum point for the graph of f of x. F of x is the blue graph, and you probably know how to find the minimum. You can just go to the menu, analyze graph, minimum. Okay, and the minimum is here. So which graph? Obviously, you've plotted 2. All right, the calculator is smart enough to ask कौन से graph के बारे में बात कर रहे हो आप. So you have to just go and highlight if you've done the 2 graphs. Hit there, and then you can add the bounds, and it'll give you the coordinates just like that. Okay, 270 and comma -1 entered there. Write in the period and amplitude of this graph. Okay, you can use the same rules as I said earlier on. So it was just sine x. In this case, it's very simple. The period is one complete. Period. Remember I said is 360 divided by the b. In this case, the b is 1 because your function is sine of x, right? And the amplitude is just 1 because there's no a. The a is 1. I'm referring to that a sine bx. The b is 1 again, so 360, right? Clearly, you can see it from the graph also, the period. One complete sine wave is 360 degrees. That's good enough. Sketching, okay? So those two points for sketching, you can't mess up on that, okay? Calculator mein hai, graph it. Write down the range. What is range? Look at the graph. The range is always from the minimum value, minimum to maximum, vertically. Okay, that means you have to look along the y-axis. Okay, minimum to maximum for each graph, right? So let's look at it again. So I'll go to the calculator. F of x is our blue graph, right? So the minimum value, as you can clearly see, that's the minimum value. Maximum value wahan par hai. Range, we are looking at the range. Okay, so the maximum value, to look at the maximum value, you can just go there, and again, it's going to ask us which graph are we talking about. Ye wala graph. So yahan aa gaya. Okay, so 90, and clearly for both the graphs, the maximum is the 90. Iska minimum 0 hai. So we can write down the range. Okay, the range for the blue graph, which is sine x, has to be from y values. Sorry, we're looking for the y values. Okay, y values. As I said, it's the y values, not 270 or 90. You're looking at the y values, which is -1 to 1. And for the The red graph, which is sine of x square, it is going from 0 to 1. Is that clear? For both of them, the max values occur at the same, the coordinates are the same, 90, 90, yeah, maybe 270, 270, 1. But the maximum value for both graphs is 1. But the minimum value for the red graph is 0. So the range, read it along the y. So it's the y coordinates you're looking for the minimum and the maximum. So from the minimum to the maximum, it's -1 to 1. Okay, so we can write it down as, this is how you should write it down. Okay, from the minimum to the maximum. So you'll write it as -1 less than or equal to f of x less than or equal to 1. And for the next one, you write 0 less than or equal to g of x less than or equal to 1, because 0 was the minimum value, minimum y value. Okay, be careful on that. It says on the diagram, shade the regions where sine x is greater than or equal to sine x the whole square. Now, I want to do this, but not just for this one, all right? Because inequalities need not be done algebraically. You can use a graph to solve that. Some other question where there's an inequality, we'll take a look at that, okay? But this is just to shade where sine x is greater than or equal to sine x square. Now, the way I want you to interpret the inequality is above and below. What is this example? Ye wa teen wala question. Remember I said that? 3 functions. If it's given, just enter the 3. I should have solved this one, but never mind. You get the idea how to do that. Okay, they've even given this kind of a question. Actually, this is a great question. This is a great question, okay? If you're watching this video and you want to solve this question, this is winter 2142, okay? October, November 2142. This is a great question. This is question number 8. 3 questions given. As I've already predicted, this is going to be one of the questions with a 3 function kind of a case. Enter the 3 and do that, okay? I should not get sidetracked. This is going to be a really long video. What was I saying? I was talking about this greater than or equal to, okay? When you have one function greater than the other function, it literally means which function is above, all right? Greater than ka matlab hai, kaun kiske upar hai, all right? So this function, where is sine x above sine x square, all right? Let's look at the calculator, okay? Sine x is above sine x square. The graph of, the blue graph is above the red graph from 0 to 90. And then not just from there, okay? From 0 to 180. फिर बाद में नीचे जाता है, right? So where is it above? From 0 to 90. In this question, we are not asked where is it above. In this question, you just has to shade. So on the diagram, shade the region. So you just have to shade that part, okay? The region. Perhaps you have to shade the entire region. I don't know. Are they asking for the entire region? Because this is just shading. If you were to shade in between, it will be like saying shade the region in between. But they're saying shade the region where? So it is about shading the x values, the values of x between 0 and 180, that region. If you want, you can even shade the entire thing up here, because this entire region mein f of x is above g of x. In this case, f of x was sine x is above that. So it's literally like saying which graph is above. And if there was a question which says solve that inequality, you're looking for those values of x where the f of x is above g of x, meaning which graph is greater. Greater literally means which graph is above the other one. I hope this is clear, okay? Is there any other question on inequality? Then we can take a look at it, okay? So 2 questions on functions, 2 types of questions on functions that you should be preparing for. One, as I said, where it is defined like this, all right? And I have predicted 3. And 1 when you're given a question like this. Now, I'm going to choose a particular question like this again and do it again. And because, I want to talk about the asymptotes. In the last couple of years, they have not asked you horizontal asymptotes. But I think 2019, 2018, they have asked questions even on horizontal asymptote. Okay, so 20 and 21, they have only focused on vertical asymptotes. They have not asked about horizontal asymptote. And there's a variety of questions. Look at this, okay? Even though we don't solve this question, it says that first is to sketch. And I said, first make sure that the grid is all right. And then write on the equation of the asymptote parallel to the y-axis. Parallel to the y-axis means vertical asymptote. Coordinates of the minimum, just like we did the minimum, use that range of values of x for which the gradient is negative. Gradient is negative. It literally means where the graph is decreasing. Gradient of fx is negative means where the graph is decreasing. And you're writing the values of x, okay? So decreasing simply means graph jab niche utar rahi hai. Okay, when it's decreasing. So if there's a graph that's coming down, you just have to find out for what values of x is it decreasing, okay? Solve this question, please, because I just tried to highlight the questions that are different. I want to solve a different kind of a question, not this, because I wanted to do something that has both the kinds of asymptotes, okay? But these are the 2 different kinds of questions that are going to come on functions. And if you're finding anything that we've been talking about in this video, anything that's useful, please make sure you like, share, subscribe to this channel. Again, this is going to be a really long video. It's a paper 4. Obviously, paper 4 is a longer paper. This is also a very interesting question, as I said earlier on. I'm just looking for the question which they have asked. I think it was 19. Let's look at this question. Take a look at this question. Oh, good. Sine. Fantastic. वही उसी पे उतर आया क्या? नहीं, इसमें horizontal क्यों आएगा? Transformation. Okay. So they've asked, can you see this? They've asked with the sine quite often. I'm almost tempted to lay a bet on that. 18 was a special paper. So 18, the year, can you see this? They asked two questions on sketch in 18. 2 questions on sketching. Or यहाँ पे there's this horizontal. Write down the equations of the 2 asymptotes. One is horizontal, one is vertical. They've not said, anything about it, but obviously one will be, I want to, which one is this? One sec. यहाँ पे क्या है? Let's do this question. Let's do this question, okay? This one is 2019, I believe. Summer 2019 4-1. Okay, so let's do this question. It will give you, maxima, pucha hai. They've asked you write down the equation of each of the 3 asymptotes. And they've given G. And this is a nice thing. They've also asked you the inequality to solve this inequality. Cool. Let's do this question, all right? So this video, I know it's getting really long, but I'll be marking the chapters. So you could skip to the chapters, pause the video wherever you feel like. आराम से देखना, लेकिन ये questions please करना. Functions, यही 2 type of questions आएंगे. That's why I'm taking my time to do this video, even if it's getting long. All right, the recording में मैं देख रहा हूँ अभी already 1.25 घंटा recording में ही हो गया. Okay, so let's just insert a new problem. And I'm going to add, what do I want to add? I'm going to add a graph page. Do I need the calculator page for this one? No, I'm just going to add a graph page directly. Okay. You could actually even insert a graph calculator page and define it there, but let's just jump here. And as I said, you just hit escape first, just get the grid right. Okay. So the grid is minimum value of X. What I mean by grid right is, what are they given here? -2. Can you see that? X minimum is -2. X max is 7. Then it becomes easy to copy down the graph. Na? -6, 6. और क्वेश्चन को अच्छी तरह पढ़ना. fx है, gx भी है. दोनों को साथ में पहले ही ग्राफ कर दो. पूरा क्वेश्चन आराम से पढ़ना पहला. First read the entire question. So you have an fx and a gx. Graph both of them. It just helps in saving time, right? So let's go there and hit tab to get the entry line. Control and this division sign to give you the template for rational function. Numerator में x plus 2. Denominator में hit tab so that you can come down there. Put a bracket. You got x minus 1 and times x minus 4. And just like that, when you hit enter, you got the graph. There you go. Can you see this? Wonderful graph. And you can clearly see there are 2 vertical asymptotes. They asked the question about 3, remember? The third one is a horizontal one here. We'll come to that in a minute. Let's enter the second function. Gx is given as x minus 5. This is the second function, that my red, and that is the straight line there. Okay, let's move this thing on this side. This also can be a clutter, especially when you're using the calculator. So all these different things that will be shown here, just know how to move these labels around the definition of the function. Okay, otherwise it'll be hard to read. Okay, so we got this thing. Make sure you make a neat sketch, and that's 3 points. Yeah, 3 points. Dekho, 3 points. So make sure you make a neat sketch of the graph. Achhi tarah karna. Okay, 3 points for this graph, as well as have they asked to sketch the other one? No. G ko to nahi bola hai, but chalo. Okay. On the diagram, sketch the graph of y equal to f of x that you can do. Write down the coordinates of the local maximum point. That also you should be able to do. Okay, let's just jump to the calculator. This is the f of x is that blue graph. So you can just go to menu, analyze the graph, maximum. It's going to ask which graph because you got more than one graph, and you choose that graph. Okay, make sure you choose that graph. So the coordinates can be entered just like that. Then it says write down the equation of each of the 3 asymptotes. Now, igcse 0607 may obviously you look at the terms that make the denominator 0, but when you come to IB, all right, I made a video, by the way, I'm going to link this videos on the asymptotes. Okay, vertical asymptote does not, denominator becoming 0 does not necessarily guarantee that there's a vertical asymptote. I'm going to link that video. You should watch the video on vertical asymptotes and holes. That's a more IB kind of a topic, but still concept is concept. So just by looking at the denominator, I don't want to say denominator kahan pe 0 hai, wahan pe vertical asymptote bol do. I don't feel right about it because, as I said, the larger concept is that there may be a hole. So I'm just going to link that video for those of you who are curious. Exam ki nazar se sirf dekhna hai, the IGCSE exam, I just say look at the denominator becoming 0. Okay, that's from an examination perspective, not from an understanding the concept perspective. So if you really want to understand that concept of vertical asymptotes and holes, I'll link that video. Go take a look at it, and if you like that video, share that video with your friends. So you've got two of the vertical asymptotes right from the denominator, right? So that's going to be x is equal to 1, x equals 4. So where's the third one? The third one is a horizontal asymptote. Vertical aisa hota hai, horizontal aisa hota hai, okay? Maximum ka bhi I'll write down the coordinates. That's 2.24 and the y coordinate is negative 1.94, okay? Now that's the horizontal asymptote. Now hear me out, okay? On the graphing calculator, you can't see the line. You can't see it clearly. So you have to use another trick. I mean, you can look at the graph and you can say, andaza mein kya hai, but andaza nahi chalega, yahan pe you have to be accurate. So here's the thing you got to watch out for, okay? For the horizontal asymptotes. So I'm just going to write these notes here. I'll link my video on horizontal asymptotes also, if that helps. So this is horizontal asymptote. And I cannot for sure say that horizontal asymptote puchenge, vertical asymptote 100% because that's going to happen. But I can't rule out the possibility only because it's come at least in 2 different years. And this is 2019 ka hai na? Haan, 2019 ka paper hai. They've asked horizontal asymptote, even though they've not clearly stated that's horizontal asymptote. Okay, so you know that there are only 2 vertical asymptotes. How do we identify horizontal asymptote? Well, we look at the function and we look at the numerator and the denominator, the degree of the numerator and the degree of the denominator. Okay. If the degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the denominator, numerator yahan pe kya hai? 1. The degree of the numerator here is 1. Highest power of x is 1. The highest power of x in the denominator is 2. So I'll write it off. Degree of numerator is 1. Let's not put it equal to here. And the degree of the denominator is 2. When the degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the denominator, so that's what I'm going to write here. Degree of numerator is less than the degree of the denominator. Okay? In this case, your horizontal asymptote is going to be y is equal to 0. It's the x-axis. Bindas likho. So in this case, it is the same case, right? The degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the denominator. Just write it down as y is equal to 0, the x-axis. On the other hand, if you have the case where the degree of the numerator is equal to the degree of the denominator. I think there has been a question somewhere, okay? Let me just check. Did I put it here? One sec. Yahan pe kya hai? Yahan pe bhi nahi hai. Somewhere there was something like that, yeah. Yaad nahi aa raha hai. But let me just go through the rules, right? So when you have the degree of the numerator equal to the degree of the denominator, what does that mean? That means degree is the highest power of x. It doesn't matter what the other terms are. So let's just say you have something like x cube, blah, 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 blah. And the denominator also you had an x cube, blah, 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 blah. And the coefficient, this is what is important. Let's say the coefficient of this leading term was x cubed and the coefficient here was, let's say, 4. When you have the degree of the numerator equal to the degree of the denominator, the horizontal asymptote is just that, 3 over 4. Okay, so let's say that was a function. The horizontal asymptote is just going to be y is equal to the ratio of the leading coefficients. Okay, so it's going to be 3 over 4, just like that. This is when the degree of the numerator is equal to the degree of the denominator. Pause it and watch it a couple of times, this particular video. This is going this particular part of the video, if you have not understood. I'm also going to link the other video that I made a separate complete video on horizontal asymptotes. But our video is going to get super long, so I need to run through it. I just have put the 2 different cases when the degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the denominator, when the degree of the numerator is equal to the degree of the denominator. And when the degree of the numerator is greater than, there is no horizontal asymptote. So I have not mentioned that because agar puchenge to hoga na, agar nahi puchenge to, all right? So, but fir bhi, for the sake of theory, I said that's probably more of an IB thing. When the degree of the numerator is greater than the degree of the denominator, then there is no horizontal asymptote. In IB, you'll also study something called an oblique asymptote, but your course does not have anything to do with an oblique or a slant asymptote. Okay, so I mentioned this algebraically because, as I said, calculator mein it's not obvious. All right, it's not obvious, and in fact, if I were to, it's not even obvious that it's the x-axis. देखो ऐसे लग रहा है कि चिपक के जा रहा है ना? Can you see that? It's not so obvious. In fact, if you actually zoom in, it will also look like it is cutting the x-axis. And again, I don't know, and I'm just jumping to a lot of IB material. your graph can cut the horizontal asymptote. I should not talk about it. Just go and watch that video. All right. Maybe you'll understand. A graph can cut the horizontal asymptote, but it'll never cut a vertical asymptote. Okay. So it's a lovely question. And if some of you are going to do IB, maybe you should actually consider all those kind of explorations. Okay. So I just showed you the algebraic way because it's not so clear on the graphing calculator. So remember this, pause the video and just go with these notes. Okay. Horizontal asymptote kaise nikalte hain, especially because they've asked the three asymptotes. Now, when they ask you to solve an equation fx is equal to gx, it's a graphical approach. Don't spend your time, all right? This is, matlab ye question aane wala jaise maine bola, aisa type of question, by the way. And within this question, they will either ask an inequality or an equation, okay? Solve this inequality or solve this. They have asked both here, right? Solve fx is greater than. Now, what you got to do is that you just have to find the points of intersection. Where is fx is equal to gx? It's just a graphical method. Don't waste too much time on that. So just jump straight to the calculator. And what you can do is that you can just find the point of intersection. That's meant by solving, all right? So what you can do is I can just go to menu and I'm going to go to the geometry app. I'm a little skeptical to use a geometry app. I'll tell you very quickly, all right, why. Itna main badbadta hu na. See, okay, go to menu, geometry, points and lines, intersection points. In one go, you can get it, okay? Just select this graph, and you've got all coordinates of the 3 points of intersection. Can you see? This can be a little cluttered, so be careful, all right? So, kaun sa hai? 2.79 probably is that. 2.24 is the other one. So that's the reason. In the moment you find something like that, you maximum ka coordinates tha na, that 2.25. Just make a note of it so that you don't get confused. And I'm talking from the examination perspective. Okay. Again, as you can see, this 2.24 refers to the maximum, local maximum value, and that is the point of intersection. There are 3 points of intersection. And we are looking, when they say solve, it is just to write the values of x. So I'm just going to note down those values. That is 1.34. And the second value is 2.79. And the third value is 5.87. Now, all these are small things, okay? I mean, it might seem like a very small thing to you, but it's an important thing because what if you copied the wrong value? You found the point of intersection, but what if you've copied the wrong value? That's why I said just make sure that you keep it clean. And suppose it's getting too cluttered. Once you've copied it down, then maybe just hide it, okay? Just go right click. Remember, right click is, control menu. So you can just say hide it. You're not deleting it. What got it? Acha, point ho gaya. Okay, control Z karta hu. It was just that point. I wanted to hide the entire thing. But anyway, you know how to hide any information. Let's talk about greater than. Now, what did I talk about greater than? What did I say earlier on? Look at this question. It says fx is greater than. Use that same logic of which graph is above. Which graph is above? And when it says solve, it's not just asking about which graph is above. It says when is this graph above? When ka matlab hai? For what values of x is f of x above g of x? Or if it's less than, you're talking about when is the graph of f of x below. Think about it that way, all right? And still use a calculator, okay? So you'd have sketched the graph here. We are looking at when is the blue graph on our thing. When is that blue graph above the graph above the red graph? Okay, when is this graph above? So it's above for all those values, na? Matlab, yahan pe it's above also for these values. So you got to be careful. So there's an asymptote here. Remember that, okay? That asymptote is x is equal to 1. So all values before x equals 1, it's above. Then from x equals 1 to the next asymptote or to that point of intersection. Yeah, next asymptote you can say. No, you should not say the next asymptote because no, yahan pe wo graph here, that point of intersection. Okay? Till that point of intersection. Clear? From this asymptote to this point of intersection. And then from the other asymptote, from the second vertical asymptote to this point of intersection. Okay? That's when it's above. So read it as above. I'm going to write these things down. Again, let's look at it. Any value of x before the first vertical asymptote, which is x is equal to 1. So how to write it down? We are going to write it down as x less than 1. Or, okay? Or, that's how you combine, all right? So x less than 1, that's when the graph of the blue graph is above the red graph, okay? That's the first vertical asymptote. And then from the first vertical asymptote, because the value x is equal to 1 is not part of the domain, right? So from the first vertical asymptote to this point of intersection, which is 2.79, x value, all right? So we write it down as x between 1 and 2.79. You could even use it, but they're equal. You should not use equal, 2.79. Okay, don't use equal because I At that value, both those values are equal, right? The blue graph and the red graph. Can you see that? They both are equal now, so it should be strictly less than. So anything between those values, the blue graph is above. And then from the second vertical asymptote, which is x is equal to 4, to that point, again, this the point of intersection here, 5.87. So the third one, and you write it down, is going to be, again, let's use the word or. Is this color visible? All right, so from 4 to 5.87. 5.87. Clear? Again, if you have not understood this part, pause this video, understand what I've, if you just go slow, all right? And this is a sure shot, okay? This is a sure shot kind of a case where they give you a graph and they ask to solve the inequality, but solving the inequality is not about an algebraic process. They expect you to do it using the calculator, and greater than or less than has to be interpreted as which graph is above which graph, and you're finding the values of x that satisfy that kind of a condition. Fx is above, or the blue graph is above the red graph for these values of x. Is that okay? I've chosen some of the more difficult ones, challenging ones if you were to call that. These are the two different kinds of questions on functions. So we've gone through the whole lot of thing. 1.5 घंटा इसी में हो गया. On statistics and functions, I'm almost tempted to stop it here. But if you are finding anything useful from the information that's being shared, please, as I said, like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel. It'll be quite an encouraging thing. I'm just going to move on a little faster to vectors. Now, vectors mein, you all have seen, let me just keep this as a suspense. You all have seen questions like these. You all have seen questions like these, right? Draw the transformation. They'll say, reflect karo, translate karo, rotate karo, enlarge. All this is given. Sometimes it's to describe the single transformation, right? So because this is overdone and you may already know how to do that, here's the thing. I'm basically showing the different kinds of questions. So this is a question that will come. Okay? Ye to aane wala hai. And obviously, it's not very hard to predict. By the way, my prediction should be in pink color. So ek question aisa aayega. But there's another kind of question that's come recently. Watch this. This is 21. Again, see this? Have you seen a question like this? With words, means they said in part A, enlargements and stretches have scale factors greater than 1. Enlargement and stretches have scale factors greater than 1. A transformation maps triangle A to triangle B. Triangle A is congruent to triangle B. That's all that's given to you. When triangle A is congruent to triangle B, it says tick all possible transformations it could be. No drawing. All that which we saw. We're used to that. But this kind of thing has come, I think, twice, where you have to, through words, obviously they're trying to understand whether they're trying to check whether you understand what's going on when the two triangles are congruent. When the two triangles are congruent, triangle A transforming to triangle B and they still remain congruent, what are the possibilities? Okay, it could be rotation. Rotation is size never बढ़ रहा है ना, enlargement and all that. So it could be rotation. So you can check that. It could be a reflection. It could be a translation because there's no enlargement, stretch and all. The only things that it can't be is this. So you're just doing a tick, no cross. So I just wanted to show, it's simple, but I just wanted to show the different kinds of questions that are possible. Then this question obviously aayega. So there will be one question on transformation, definite. And even transformations that's embedded within functions, by the way. Okay. But it could be this or it could be that, or it could be a mix of the two. All right. So please practice these kinds of questions also. And just to give you an idea, this is October, November 2021, 4.1, where they've given this question. Just go through the more recent papers. You'll get questions on transformations with words. All right. I want to talk about something with the transformation. Now, I know that this is geometry and I don't have geometrical tools. I don't have the equipment to show how to do it, reflection, but I just want to share a little tip, maybe at the end of the video. Okay. Wait and watch, or just skip to that. I want to share a tip about this thing that relates to the calculator. Yes, you can use your calculator to check your geometrical construction, whether you've got it right. Okay. So, or I'm going to link that video. Okay. That will be better. I'm going to link that video. Just go and watch that. Okay. Now, if your calculator, hear me out clearly, all right? I don't want to confuse people here. If your calculator is not set on press to test mode, you can't use that particular option. तो वो geometrical tools के साथ ही करना पड़ेगा. Okay, so protractor, compass, all that, finding the point of center of rotation, all that, you do it. However, let's say for instance, okay, this is nothing against any school or any teacher. Let's say for instance, they have not put your calculator, they've not asked to put your calculator on press to test mode, that calculator is going to help you. And remember, this paper, it's those who know how to use a calculator smartly. So I'm not saying that it's kind of a cheating or something. It's just that the school decided not to put the calculator on press to test mode. Okay, it was their decision. And if they do that, because actually, you know what, there's no hard and fast rule even in the Cambridge website that the calculators must be put to press to test mode. It's in the IB. There's a guideline given that all calculators must be in press to test mode. The only thing that is written on the Cambridge website is that you can't use a CAS model, you know, the algebra system. Not anything got to do with the press to test mode. But many schools will follow the same system as the IB exam. So they will put the calculator on the press to test mode. So in case they don't put it on the press to test mode, there's a cool way to use your calculator to verify answers. In fact, I'd say ulta karo. Pehla calculator mein karo, फिर copy it down, just make the arcs and कि ये point यहाँ पे translate हुआ है, ये point यहाँ पे rotate हुआ है. Just do it that way. So I'm going to link all those videos on transformation, but hear me out. It's only possible when the calculator is not set to press to test mode. So I just thought I will mention those things. Okay. So transformation, remember these two types of questions. One is drawing. And like I said, I'm limited by my own technology. I don't have, instruments to show that, but you need to practice this one. Let's just do this one part of this question. Okay. Even though we don't have the technology, let's just talk about this because this was very unique in the sense that when it comes to stretch, you have this one line variant. Either it's the x-axis that's variant or the y-axis variant or some line that's variant. But in all those invariant lines, that line is not going through the object. Look at this one. Look at this one. I'm just looking at the different kinds of questions. What was unique? Okay, so part 2 of this particular question said, stretch triangle P with the x-axis invariant and scale factor 2. All right, so this is your triangle P. X-axis is invariant. Iska matlab kya hai? It means, it's running in between, which means it's actually stretched on either end. Otherwise, if I just make up a triangle here, let's say, okay, something like that. Similar dimensions, lete kya? Okay, let's say that was a triangle. Okay, and then you say that the x-axis is the invariant line, then it's just being stretched in one direction, in one side of the line, if you think of it that way. But now because that x-axis is running through that object, it's actually being stretched on two sides. Just be careful on that part, okay? So the new coordinates with the scale factor 2, keep that in mind, all right? Scale factor 2. So it's still being stretched vertically, not horizontally, because, the horizontal dimension is invariant. Scale factor 2, matlab, if it was 4, it's got to become 8, okay? So 4 on each side. So this is going to be yahan pe 1, 2, yahan pe 1, 2. So let's just mark that point here. That is 1, 2, 3, 4 here. And this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 here. Join those 2 points with a straight edge. I'm just doing it by free hand now. Okay. This will still be 2. Remember, as I said, it's just going vertically and then join these 2 points. I hope I don't make a mess, but I hope you understand what I have done. Okay. The coordinates are important. So I'll just label the coordinates. This is 4, 4. And this is going to be 4, -4. Hope this is clear. I just wanted to highlight this one thing. And as you can see, I'm not able to do it without proper geometrical instruments. I just wanted to highlight the different kind of question. And this was kind of very unique in the sense for that invariant line. So that's about vectors and transformations. Vectors ka question aega. Okay. I think even though this kind of question is more of a paper 2 kind of question, they have asked it in paper 4 also. All right. I definitely believe this is a paper 2 kind of question, but this has appeared and that's why I wanted to show to you. Most of the time they ask you this kind of question. Nowadays they've asked with the words. So I just thought I will show these things also. As you can see, again, this is about a point. Okay, but you have to draw the point. And please go and watch that video of mine. Okay, that really helps in understanding. Let's just move understanding how to use the calculator for transformations, that is. Okay, but as I said, if the calculator is on press to test mode, it's not going to work. Now, this third part is on algebra. And remember, algebra is not just the algebra that we see something like this. It's not just solve equations like this or a log equation or an exponential equation. This is algebra. And there will be questions on this kind also. But the question that I want to lay my bet is on questions like these, where, look at this. ये कहाँ से algebra लग रहा है? This is like a circle and a line. It looks like coordinate geometry. But this is the kind of questions where you have to formulate equations. You have to come, it says show that. That means, it might be some equation of a circle. I think they're using substituting, right? Because those are the point of intersection given you have to use that kind of substitution and then show that there's an algebraic possibility. You got to solve that quadratic equation later and then It says, give your answers to 2 decimal places. Again, 2 decimal places. Why did I highlight that settings thing earlier on the calculator? You have already set it to 3SF. And once you're doing this kind of a thing, using the calculator. And by the way, while we are at it, why don't we solve that question? Why don't we solve this equation? Okay. So I'm just jumping to the calculator right now. I'm going to jump there. It's 10x squared plus 6x minus 15. So let's just jump to the calculator, insert a new problem. We'll make all these things clear. Okay. So, it's in doc. Insert a new problem. And I'm going to insert a calculator page. Okay. Now, you need to know where to change the settings. Okay. Because it is set to 3SF, and keep it on 3SF because, as a whole throughout the paper, it has to be 3SF for exact values, right? So you can come here and change that to 2 decimal places as required by the question. And decimal places is fixed. So we're going to go there and hit enter. And now whenever the calculator displays the answer, it will be 2 decimal places. But don't forget to change it back. Exam time mein yaar bhul sakte ho, to dhyan dena, all right? Now, to solve a quadratic equation, you can use the polynomial tools. So let's go and menu algebra. And we can just say polynomial tools and say find roots of the polynomial and degree 2 because it's a quadratic. You just enter the coefficients as it is given. Okay, so it's 10. Hit tab to go to the next one. It'll 6. Hit tab to go to the next one. It's negative 15. I'm going to use this key for the negative. Okay, this is for negative and this is for subtraction. Negative 15. Hit enter. Hit enter again. It'll give you the syntax. Hit enter. Now it gives you to the 2 decimal places as required. But इतना सा काम के लिए 4 mark नहीं मिलेगा. Look at that. Okay, so where is my iPad? Sorry, iPad. So it says solve the equation. We have solved the equation to find the coordinates of the points A and B. All right. So I think these are just the x coordinates. You need to find the y coordinates of each of them. But I just thought I'll show the technique. But remember this is 4 points. What you need to write then? The quadratic formula is given in the formula sheet, right? So just enter it. Okay, for the sake of entering, just enter it. So A kya ho gaya? A is 10, B is 6, and C is a negative 15. All right, so you can just write it as negative B plus or minus under root of 6 square minus 4AC, right? 4, 10, negative 15 over 2 times 10. Ye bas likh lo. This is working. This is good enough. They've given the formula. Just enter it this way. Baad mein calculator ka khel dekho. All right, so negative 1.56 is the x coordinate of one point and 0.96 is the y coordinate, x coordinate of the other point. You still have to work it out. Okay, so make sure that when you are solving a question like this, find the complete answer. I've just left it blank. Okay, but they have asked the coordinates both of A and B, and I think that comes from this idea. Okay, you can substitute it in any of the equation. Y is equal to 3x plus 1 or because it's a common point of intersection. So what I meant to say is that algebra also is not just about those algebraic equation solving, but it involves shapes like this. Look at this thing, okay? Sometimes you have to formulate an equation. This is simultaneous equations, right? You have to form equations. So forming equations is where I'm going to be laying my bet on. Okay, it's a sure shot question. You have already seen that. Look at this, again, forming equations. There's a rectangle. Again, it looks like geometry, right? There's a rectangle, there's a square. It says the area of the rectangle is equal to the area of the square. Forming equations, okay? You'll get something like a quadratic, I believe, and then you have to solve that. And obviously, if it's a quadratic, you have to justify why the second value is to be rejected. Maybe if it's a negative value, you have to reject it saying that it's the length of a side. It can't be negative. Mention that and guess what? Dekho kitna points ka hai? 7 points. So yes, you can use the polynomial tool, but write down, show the working. In fact, even that decision, why to reject the negative value, write it down. Okay. So algebra, I'm laying my bet on forming questions involving forming equations. Okay. Have you seen this kind of a question before? I thought I'll highlight, as I said, all the different kinds of questions. Double variation, a question on double variation. Y is inversely proportional to the square root of x, and z is directly proportional to the cube of y. Find z in terms of x. Okay, let's do this question because it's different. Okay, so y must be equal to k over under root of x, and the question is to find z in terms of x, and then we can say we can find the value of k, right? So when x is 36, y is 2, and z is okay for the same value of x. So k would be equal to 2 times a 6. K is equal to a 12, giving us a relation y is equal to 12 over root of x. Correct? And then we can enter the next variation, which is z is equal to, this time let's, instead of k, because there are two different, I mean, you can use k, but I don't want to confuse between k is equal to 12 and the other one. So I'm just going to call it p, all right? P is just constant of proportionality, p times y cube, and using the values z equals 24 when y is equal to 2, so that's 8. The value of p should be 3, which means the equation we get here is z is equal to 3 times p, y cube, 3 times y cube, all right? And then since we need to find out y, z in terms of x, you can replace this y by what you have here, 3 times 12 over root of x cube, right, z. And you want to simplify that, you go ahead and simplify or write it down. Basically, I thought it was a very interesting kind of a question. The rest of it you can simplify and find the final compact simplified version, all right? So algebra, as I said, remember it's forming equations. That's the kind of question that you should be also focusing on. Look at this. This looks like a question on ratio, but then again, it's about forming that equation, okay? An expression for the amount of money that Alana receives is 200x over x plus y, okay? Alana and Jobio, A and B, share $200 in the ratio x is to y. Okay, so it looks like a ratio question, but algebraically it's about formulating. Okay, this question, do I have the year? Okay, October, November 21, 4-3. Okay, 2021, 4-3. Focus on formulating algebraic equations and then solving it. Sometimes it's simultaneous, sometimes it's quadratic. And I already told you that if it's quadratic, you need to show the working. Ye bhi 5 mark ka hai, dekho. Okay, you show the working even though you are using that polynomial tools. Okay, this is a good question. Okay, as I said, I was highlighting all the different kinds of questions. It is a quadratic. Again, it's 3 points. Even if it's 3 points, I would say write down that, as I said, x is equal to negative b plus minus. Just show the substitution, not the formula. Formula sheet mein the formula hoga hi. You show the substitution, use the polyroots option, and find out the answer ended here. Now, the reason I found it an interesting question because it's an application of that quadratic, where they've given tan. You're asking the value of y here. So basically, why did I call it an application? Look at this equation. This is 2x squared minus 5x plus 1, and that x is just replaced by tan y. You understand? So you're using the answers from here. Let's just solve it, instead of talking so much. Itna bol liya hai, time mera वैसे भी 2 घंटा होने वाला है, let's just do it anyway. So what I'm going to do is just go to the calculator and insert a new problem, calculator page, and we are going to solve this quadratic, okay? This particular quadratic first. But like I said, first write it down as A is 2, B is a negative 5, and C is a 1, right? So we have the values of x is negative of negative 5 minus b square under root of b square minus 4 2 1 over 2 times 2. Itna to likhna banta hai, you have to show the working, all right? And then you can use the calculator option. So I'm going to jump there and menu, algebra, polynomial tools, find the roots of the polynomial, degree 2, just enter it as it is. So negative 5, remember, just use this sign for negative and that for subtraction. Okay, so negative 5, tab, sorry, this is 2. This is 2. Next one is negative 5. And this next one is a 1. All right, and hit enter. Those are the two values of x. So you got the value of x as 0.22 and 2.28. You got the two values. All right, come back to the question. You've entered the two values of x here. Now, as said, I said that this is just an application of that, right? So you can see that that was 2x squared minus 5x plus 1. So x is what you got, the values of x is, should be the same thing for tan y. And you're solving for y now. So nice question, right? And they've given, for what y only takes those values. It's in the first and the second quadrant. That's the meaning of this, okay? So you can say tan y must be equal to 0.22 or tan y must be equal to 2.28. Then use your tan inverse on your calculator, find out the values. ये 2 point ही है, ज़्यादा घूमना फिरना नहीं है. But remember, there's got to be a positive and a negative value. Why? Because Sorry, it's just given as positive, right? So tan is positive, so that means it must be in the first quadrant only. If it was negative, then obviously, so both are positive. First quadrant, matlab, it has to be less than 90 degrees, okay? So let's just quickly show that also to you. So once you have that thing, it is just shift tan, so you can say tan inverse of 2.28, you can copy. Yes, this calculator is smart enough to do all that kind of stuff. So you can just copy that, paste it here, say enter, and it's 12.41. Okay, glad we looked at this question. When it comes to angles, you need to round it off to one decimal place. I mean, that will be given in the question anyway. The angle ka jo bhi measure hai na, remember, it's not 3SF, it's one decimal place. So 12.4 is what you need to write for the first one. And the second one, again, as I've shown this trick before, up arrow key, bring that expression down, just change that, okay? If you want to save time, then you just copy and paste. Actually, you know, this calculator, the more you use, you get better at with the thing. Again, remember, one decimal place. And if you can round off, fine. Otherwise, you can go and change the settings here, okay? So this is actually still at two decimal places, I believe. So I think the pehla wala answer mere ko na change karna padega, because you have to write your answers to 3SF, huh? So this is 66.3. 66.3. You know what I mean by that is this is, I think, two decimal places. One sec. I think I mentioned that earlier. Don't forget to change, and I forgot. होता है, मेरे से गलती हुआ, तुमसे भी हो सकता है. So let's run that thing again. So go back, hit enter. And now can you see it's 0.219, 2.28 is fine. So let's just change that. Okay, so when I come here, I think this is a good thing, okay? I'm glad we all can learn from my mistakes. Is it 219? 219, which means even the tan ka answer ko slightly shift karna padega. The tan y is equal to 0.22. I don't know what screen I was sharing, so let me just jump to the calculator again. Basically, what I did was earlier, I had left the calculator to two decimal places. Remember, I said that and I made the mistake again. Okay, so document settings, I changed it to float 3. That was 3SF. Okay, that's the standard thing. So I just, then what I did was I used the top arrow key, went back and brought that expression where we had that earlier answer, hit enter, and then I get 0.219. Okay, and that's what I entered here at 0.219. Then I ran the same thing for tan inverse of 0.219 and I got the same angle as 12.4. That is what I think I messed up when I was sharing the screens. Okay, there we go. Cool. So this is all about algebra. Remember, the main thing which I wanted to highlight is formulating equations. ये तो ऐसा algebra आएगा, आ सकता है. Okay, but I'm going to lay my bet on forming equations. It could be geometry. It could be even something like this. Look at that. This is also looking like something like a geometry, but then it's about picture frames. And as I said, you need to show that kind of a question. And ये हमेशा ना कुछ 4-5 marks का होता है. So as I show the trick, remember that. So my bet is on forming equations. All right, let's move on. Otherwise, we are going to be here all night recording. Sequences. By 100%. Brush up your sequences. There are two kinds of questions. Sometimes they give you more than one sequence. Like this one particular question, they'll have A, B, C, D, all are sequences. And you've got to check the differences. And sometimes it's first difference, second difference, third difference, jo bhi hai, karo. Okay, this type of question, ya fir this type of question, but definitely one question on sequences. So I've already made certain predictions. Okay, sequences pakka aane wala hai, but pay close attention to the kind of terms in this sequence. Pause the video, take a look at it, because this is also more recent paper now. What is this? Yeah, this is also October, winter 2142. Pause this video, see wala dekho. It's not just about differences. In the last few years, they've been also asking about geometric sequences. I just thought I'll show you the kinds of questions. Sequences aane wala hai. It can either be a question that is like this. There might be more than, like A, B, C, D. I've seen questions like that. And, first difference, second difference, third difference. But in the recent years, they've also been asking questions on geometric sequence. Okay. And that looks clearly like a geometric sequence. Okay. The common ratio is 2, I believe, right? Or is it half? Half times 2 is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. It looks like and then 4 times 2 is an 8, which means the nth term should be a, the first term, times r, which is 2 to the power of n minus 1. Okay, so I'll just make a note of it. So it's the nth term, if you call it un, is a, r to the power of n minus 1. R is the common ratio. So it's not always differences. Sometimes it's the ratio. And in the recent years, they've been asking questions on geometric sequences also. Number. ये question बहुत आ चुका है, I believe, in the paper 2 that you just took. But, there's always a question on this component interest, percentage change. sometimes they'll give you both, a simple interest and a compound interest. The guy takes the money and, then it's about comparing the two interests. So this is I'm going to lay my bet on this kind of a question where there's a simple interest, compound interest kind of a question, okay? Because that probably has made its way throughout. Ratio, yeah, simple interest again, this is about percentage change, percentage reduction, okay? This also has made its way. But I'm going to lay my bet on what? Simple interest, compound interest. This is also a good question that has come, okay? I'm just showing you the different kinds of questions that come under number. So this is about calculating the average speed. It talks about, the plane leaves at this hour, find the local time in Goa. Exchange rate. What is this? Again, can you see this? Simple interest, compound interest. Okay. I'm laying my bet on simple interest, compound interest. Go through all these kinds of questions. I would say, I don't understand why they ask a question like this. Can you believe this? This is again a paper 2 kind of a question, 1 point. In fact, you should just use the calculator to do all the rounding off. Change this to this. Oh, by the way, even this can be done using the calculator. Okay, how to convert. I'll link those videos because this video is getting like a 3 घंटे का movie होने वाला है. Luckily, there is skip chapters. Please skip chapters, but please watch and please comment. And if you find this useful, please share and subscribe to my channel. All right. Geometry mensuration. Ready for this? Okay. What kind of questions in geometry? You will get 3 types. Okay. One will be a volume, one will be a total surface area, and then there'll be something that will be clubbed with trigonometry. The geometry mensuration questions, kuch na kuch trigonometry mein aayega. And the trigonometry we're looking at is always this kind of an angle. Sometimes we try to call it the angle between the line and a plane. Okay, look at this angle FAC. Calculate FAC. Kahan hai FAC? FAC. Look at that angle. If I were to mark that angle, FA, hawe mein hai na, and C idhar hai. Can you see that? So that triangle. My drawing is terrible. Okay, FAC. This is the angle they're looking for. The angle between the line and the plane. So that's a fair bit of trigonometry that needs to be used to be able to identify that. At least they've given you this. Okay, I think in some papers now, they just say calculate the angle that this makes with this plane. Okay, there you have to identify, I underlined something else. Okay, this one I'm talking about. They calculate the angle FAC. At least they identify the angle FAC. Sometimes they'll just say calculate the angle made by this segment with this plane. So angle tumko identify karna padega. So, and this is just 2 points. So that's just right angle triangle trigonometry. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that mensuration questions will be volume, surface area. One question jahan pe trigonometry mila hoga, and definitely a question on similar shapes, areas and volumes of similar shapes. Ye mila ke puchte hain. Okay. So mensuration, should I lay my bet on? Why not, yaar? Why not? वैसे भी पेपर 2 में इतना मैंने बेट किया, बहुत कुछ गलत आया. But this is the formula, this is the format, okay, for mensuration. Take a look at any question. यहाँ भी देखो similar kind of question, थोड़ा टेढ़ा है, but total surface area they've asked you to mark something, and again I think you have to use trigonometry here. Is there anything else on this question? So they've asked the total surface area of the prism. Remember that there's a triangle here. I think using trigonometry here because the angle is 100 degrees, okay. So you find the area of those 2 triangles, and then there are 3 rectangles and those 2 triangles. Add up all those and get the total surface area. Circle geometry can come. Okay, I've put it all together actually, geometry, mensuration, and trigonometry together. Okay, so that's why I think you can see the question on circles here. Circles aayega. I think I should lay my bet on circles also. Again, look at this compound geometrical shape. Okay, mensuration question here. Volume, as I said. Next one will be, there's something here. Yeah, can you see the surface area? Okay, and then there'll be a similar. ये है उनका template. बीच में sometimes, just to make it a little bit more, spicy, they'll throw in something to do with trigonometry. Luckily, in this question they didn't, but this is almost like a template. Volume, surface area. Either it's a curved surface area, total surface area. Read it clearly. All right. I thought I had a question just to help you see about surface area. I don't know whether do I have it here. And there's similar solids. Okay, this is just like a typical template. Yeah, this is a lovely question. This was also in one of the recent years, but as you can see again, the ratio of the volume is given, total surface area, okay, and the ratio is given because I think it's about using the idea of similar shapes. Yeah, this is the question I want to show, okay, because again the template is the same: volume of the similar solid, यानी कि similar shapes, and total surface area. Surface area क्या होता है? Surface means what you can touch, you can feel, right? Total surface area पूछा है. Now you cannot. Like if you're just adding the, exam time में शायद, we are not able to, think clearly so much. ये ऊपर का जो surface है ना, you have to subtract that circular base because you can't use your hands to touch that surface. Now, surface area means everything where you can touch and feel, all right? So you got to be careful. It's not adding the, this base rectangle 16 by 12 two times, okay? The top rectangle, you have to subtract the circular base of that hemisphere. I just thought I'll show that question there, but the template still remains the same. And so from mensuration, what was my bet? Geometry, mensuration, trigonometry. एक तो ऐसा 3D shape आएगा, all right? And I am willing to bet on the fact that there will be a trigonometric angle. 3D trigonometry. I'm willing to bet. Similar shapes ka to aa jayega. And then one will be definitely on that, what was the other one? I showed you that circle properties. Ye wala. Circle properties ka ek aayega, and one with the mixture of trigonometry in 3D shapes. Trigonometry, okay. As it is, they have now started using trigonometry even in functions. Okay, trig functions, which is a nice thing. Bearings ka question aa sakta hai, and whenever you have a bearings ka question, again, this has got a very easy template, okay? There's a cosine rule, there's a sine rule, and this part will come. Find when it's the nearest, when the ship is nearest. It's like a perpendicular distance is the nearest. So this is like a very standard question on bearings. So when it comes to trigonometry, that part which I talked about trigonometry in mensuration, usme ek hi aata hai. It's just that one thing which is about 3D trigonometry. But this is what would be the full-fledged trigonometry, which could be a question on bearings, or it could be one of the triangles. Lekin template is the same. Look at this triangle. Ek triangle de diya hai. Lekin here you have to use cosine rule. Here you have to use sine rule to find the other angle. And then it'll be find the area of the triangle or something like that. Okay, yahan pe bearing nahi hai. But when I think of laying my bet, I think I'm going to lay my bet on a bearings kind of question because, did I hear where the bearings was asked? I don't know. Mujhe to bearings pe, I think. So let me lay my bet on bearings. But the template is the same whether it's a bearings wala question or whether it is a triangle wala question. In a bearings wala question, you might have to find something related to the bearing also. Okay, if they've given a certain bearing, you may have to find another bearing. But the template is the same. To find the angle ABC, you're using cosine rule. Okay, to find, although they've not said that, obviously I hope you understand. And look at this, 1 decimal place. Angle, 1 decimal place. Hamesha. All right. The bearing, again, the bearing is given, and here they said use a sine rule. So always there's going to be a sine rule followed by a cosine rule. And the bearing wala question, and then this is something that all these bearing wala questions have. What is the shortest? When is the shortest? When is the nearest? It's a perpendicular. Remember that. Okay. All right. Moving on. Coordinate geometry mein kya hai? Okay. Of lately, they have even asked about shading. Okay. Now this is gradient. Should I lay my bet? I have a feeling coordinate geometry mein zyada nahi puchne wala hai. Pata nahi kyun. I just feel like they might not ask. But if they do ask, it will be about an inequality that you have to shade. So they may give you, this is a good question, by the way. Let's try and solve this question, even though it's gotten more than 2 hours right now. Area of a triangle pucha hai, coordinates, because this is a very unique kind of a question, okay? So that's why I feel like sharing this question. Can you see this? It's a very unique question. So let's try and solve this. But let me just show you the different kinds of questions first. Can you see this? They asked you to shade the inequality. I have a feeling they're going to ask an inequality wala question. How to shade. Which one to shade? Shade the region, because this comes under coordinate geometry. Okay, so I am willing to bet on shading the inequality kind of a question. Although coordinate geometry may you got the other aspects of gradient nikalo, given the 2 points and the equation of the line in that form. The point C has coordinate 6, k, where k is positive and C is a line perpendicular, and with those conditions, and then you have to find the value of k. Interesting question. And then there's an added condition given. Just make a little sketch. Okay, just make a little sketch. I think that's the only way to do it. Okay, and they've given the idea that it's A, B, D, C. Dhyan dena how they've entered it. Okay, A, B, D, C is a square. Label it that way. Obviously, opposite sides have to be equal. All sides are equal. I think if you just draw it, you'll be able to get it. Okay, it's just 2 points, and find the area of the triangle. I said I'm going to solve, but I just looked at the time. I'm getting tired now. Okay, final thing. Sets and probability. Venn diagram. 100%. आने वाला है. Okay, shading the Venn diagram. Okay, ये तो आने वाला है. Okay, and then based on that, there will be questions on probability. Okay, now there have been papers where they've asked something to do with a tree. To complete the information in the tree and then solve the questions on probability. So this is one case where the tree has to be completed and then you have to solve the questions on the probability, that follow. Or there's a question like this, the Venn diagram is given and then you have to solve the questions on probability. It won't be like a paper 2. Paper 2 mein kya Venn diagram is by itself. Paper 4 mein Venn diagram aayega, then it will come with probability. I have a feeling that Venn diagram might be asked along with probability. These are questions that are clubbed together. Who knows? I might be wrong in my prediction. See this Venn diagram again. That's why I put my bet on Venn diagram Y. बार बार आता रहता है. ठीक है? Look at this. That's a more paper 2 kind of a question, by the way. This is when ये भी 21 में. This is more of a paper 2 kind of question. So I think there are these questions which come 2 and 4. This kind of question, I think I should be, I stand corrected. These kind of questions come in both, are possible both in paper 2 and paper 4. So this is more a question that you'd rather see in a paper 2 and a paper 4, I should say that way, right? But I think the kind of question, what I meant earlier is that paper 4, typically, what you don't see in a paper 2 is a Venn diagram and a probability combined together, okay? That's what probably I should have said. Now, this is the other kind of question where you're given information, there are bag A contains, or bag 1 contains 7 blue balls and 3 red balls. Bag 2 contains 3 blue balls and 7 red balls. And you asked to find the probability given some kind of restrictions. And sometimes it's about, the first one, what is it? Find the probability that one of the ball chosen is red and the other one is a blue. Okay. So perhaps here, even though they've not mentioned draw a tree diagram, the best approach I would say, personally say, is that, draw a tree. Just draw a tree. You'll not go wrong. Rough working में tree बना सब हो जाएगा. Exactly. Can you see that? The probability that there are now exactly 7 balls in the bag. So I think in this kind of question, even though they have not mentioned draw a tree, my tip would be draw a tree in questions like these. You'll not go wrong. Okay. So the kind of questions in probability, as I said, is either there's a question something like this, but there's no diagram given, neither a Venn diagram nor a tree diagram. But in a question like this, the working will go much faster if you draw a tree. Okay. To know how to draw the tree will really help. And there are also questions on expected number, okay, that's been asked, okay. So this is in a different experiment, a ball is chosen. You can still do it without a tree. I'm not saying that, you have to draw a tree, something like that, but it just goes much faster, okay. This is a very good question. Take a note of this question also. This is winter 2020. I think it must have been 4-1, all right. I wrote 2-1 by mistake. Winter 2020, 4-1, that's what it must be. Lovely question. So the kind of questions that you need to practice on probability, and because they both will come in conjunction, I don't see a Venn diagram coming by itself and sets me with this. So a question on probability that comes with Venn diagram, a question on probability that comes with tree diagram, which partly you have to complete, and then questions that follow, and a question that comes without. Okay, those are the kind of questions. But these are sure shot questions. There will be a question on probability. One of the three is going to come. Either it's a Venn diagram. I'm favoring the Venn diagram. I don't know why, but chalo, I'm happy to be wrong. But it could be a question either Venn diagram plus probability, or tree diagram plus probability, or a question where none of the diagrams are asked, and you might be better off that you drew the tree diagram in order to answer the question correctly. So that's all that I have for this video, which is talking about all the most likely questions. Just go through these things that I've shared. I will also link the playlist that I'd created for the calculator. I would suggest watch that. Okay, take time, watch that, pause that. Make sure that your calculator is set to the correct operating system. Make sure that your calculator is charged. Okay, make sure that you charge your calculator. वहाँ पर जाके you should not get tense, and make sure that you're relaxed and you have a good night's rest before the exam. All these things are important because paper 4, 60% of the score. 60% of the score, you have to do well. Why did I emphasize so much of the calculator? Because there's a lot of emphasis on the calculator. They expect you to use your calculator smartly. So that is why I'm going to repeat it again. The playlist on my calculator, whether it's a calculator page, graph page, you can watch it at your own pace. Take a look at this video also. All the questions I've also highlighted, just go through those kind of problems, okay? Solve it a couple of times. If you have any questions, please feel free to write in the comments. Just shoot an email. My details are there anyway. Just email me, just take a screenshot of some question. I'll be happy to make a video and just answer the question. But remember, relax, enjoy what you do. You will do well. All the very best.